Commander Zethrax stood on the bridge of his warship, the Eternal Dominion, and stared at the data screen in front of him. His scaled hands trembled slightly. Something that had not happened in his 300 years of military service. The information he was reading should not have been possible. Yet every scan confirmed it was true. The planet was a nightmare. Earth, they called it. A world that should not support complex life, yet somehow did. The gravity was nearly double what the Vraxian Empire considered normal. The atmosphere contained oxygen levels that would be toxic to most species in the known galaxy. The temperature swings were extreme, ranging from frozen wastelands to burning deserts. And the life forms that evolved there were all designed to kill each other. Commander, his tactical officer Krenva approached, her own scales showing the darker coloring that indicated stress. The xenobiology team has finished their analysis of the dominant species, the ones who call themselves humans. Zethrax turned to face her. What did they find? Krenva pulled up a holographic display that showed the anatomy of a human. They are apex predators, sir. Their eyes face forward, designed for tracking prey. Their teeth are made for tearing flesh. They have no natural armor, no venom, no natural weapons at all. Yet they conquered every other species on their planet. How? Zethrax asked, though he was not sure he wanted to know the answer. Intelligence and endurance, sir. They can run for days without stopping. They can survive injuries that would kill most species. They can eat almost anything. And they work together in groups, hunting in packs like the most dangerous predators we have ever documented. Zethrax felt his blood run cold. The Vraxian Empire had conquered 47 star systems over 3,000 cycles. They had faced countless species, some peaceful, some warlike. But they had never encountered a true Death World species before. The legends about such creatures had always seemed like stories meant to scare young soldiers. Now those stories were becoming real. There is more, sir. Krenva continued. Their history is filled with warfare. They have fought each other constantly for their entire civilization. They have developed weapons that can destroy entire cities. They have created poisons and diseases specifically designed to kill other humans. And they document all of this, preserve it, study it, as if they are proud of it. Around the bridge, other officers had stopped their work to listen. Zethrax could see the fear spreading through his crew. These were veteran soldiers who had faced enemy fleets without hesitation, but the idea of Deathworlders filled them with dread. What are their numbers? Zethrax asked. Over 7 billion on their homeworld alone, sir. And they are already spreading to other planets in their system. 7 billion. Zethrax tried to comprehend that number. The entire Vraxian military consisted of roughly 2 million soldiers. If even a fraction of these humans were warriors, they could overwhelm the Empire through sheer numbers alone. Have they made contact with us? He asked. Yes, sir. They sent a delegation to our border station 3 months ago. They claim they come in peace. Do you believe them? Krenva hesitated. I do not know what to believe, sir. They seem friendly. But their very nature contradicts that. A predator species does not simply become peaceful. It is against their evolution. Across the ship, similar conversations were happening. In the crew quarters, soldiers gathered in small groups, sharing stories they had heard, tales of humans who could lift weights that should crush their bones. Stories of human soldiers who continued fighting even after suffering wounds that would kill a Vraxian instantly. Legends about human pack bonding, where they would die to protect their group members without hesitation. One young soldier, Vectar, listened to these stories with growing terror. He had joined the military because the Vraxian Empire had always been the strongest force in the galaxy. Now, for the first time, he wondered if that was still true. Far from the Vraxian fleet, on a space station orbiting Neptune, Jake Morrison sat in his office and reviewed the same reports from a different perspective. He was humanity's official liaison to the Vraxian Empire, a job he had taken because he loved the idea of meeting alien species. Now, 3 months into the position, he was starting to understand that the aliens were terrified of him. They think we are monsters, his colleague Amy Chen said as she entered his office. She carried a datapad filled with intercepted Vraxian communications. Jake sighed. I know. I have been reading their military briefings. They are calling us Death Worlders. Technically, they are not wrong, Amy said, sitting down across from him. Earth is classified as a Class 12. Death World. By their standards, most species they know evolved on Class 3 or 4 worlds. The difference in environmental pressure is huge. But we are not monsters, Jake protested. We came to them peacefully. We offered trade, cultural exchange, cooperation. We have been nothing but friendly. Amy gave him a sad smile. Jake, they do not see it that way. To them, we are predators pretending to be peaceful. They think it is a trick, that we are waiting for the right moment to attack. Their entire culture is based on understanding threats, and they cannot understand us. That makes us the biggest threat they have ever faced. Jake stood and walked to the window, looking out at the stars. Somewhere, out there, an entire empire was afraid of humanity, not because humans had done anything aggressive, but simply because of what they were. It seemed unfair. What do we do? He asked. We keep trying, Amy said. We prove to them that we can be peaceful, that we are more than just our evolutionary history, and if they do not believe us, Amy did not answer, because they both knew what that meant. If the Vraxian Empire decided that humans were too dangerous to exist, they might try to eliminate the threat before it grew larger. Humanity was still limited to their own solar system, still new to space travel. Against an empire that controlled 47 star systems, they would not stand a chance. Back on the Eternal Dominion, Commander Zethrax made a decision. He would meet with the human delegation personally. He would look these creatures in the eyes and try to understand what they truly were. It was dangerous, possibly foolish, but he was a soldier. What he did not know, what neither the Vraxians nor the humans fully understood yet, was that the legends had gotten everything wrong. Humans were not the simple monsters that the stories described. They were not mindless predators driven only by instinct and hunger. The reality of what humanity truly was would prove to be far more complex, far more dangerous, and far more strange than any legend could have predicted. The first meeting between the species was scheduled for the following week at a neutral station. Both sides prepared carefully, each one unsure of what to expect. The Vraxians prepared for potential violence, arming their guards with the best weapons they had. The humans prepared for diplomacy, bringing gifts and peaceful gestures. Neither side was ready for what they would learn about the other. The truth about humans would shake the Vraxian Empire to its core and change the balance of power in the galaxy forever. But that revelation was still to come. For now, both species could only wait and wonder what would happen when monsters and legends finally met face to face. The research station Harmony floated in neutral space between human and Vraxian territories. It was built as a symbol of cooperation, a place where scientists from both species could work together and learn from each other. The station was shaped like a large ring, with separate sections for each species to accommodate their different environmental needs. In the center was a shared laboratory space, where the real work happened. Dr. Lisa Parker adjusted her microscope and smiled. She had been working on the station for 2 months now, and despite the initial tension, things were going well. The Vraxian scientists were cautious but curious, and she had learned so much from them. Their medical technology was centuries ahead of human knowledge in some areas, while human biology seemed to fascinate them endlessly. Dr. Parker, her Vraxian colleague Venkra called out. Could you help me understand this protein structure? The way human cells repair damage is very unusual. Lisa walked over to look at the screen. What seems unusual about it? It is too aggressive, Venkra explained. Your cells attack problems with a force that seems excessive. They throw resources at healing that most species would save for other functions. It is inefficient. Maybe, Lisa said with a grin. but it keeps us alive in situations that would kill other species. Inefficient, but effective. Venkra made a gesture that Lisa had learned was the Vraxian equivalent of a shrug. The two scientists had developed a good working relationship, though Lisa knew that Venkra was still nervous around humans. Most Vraxians were. Across the lab, Ryan Brooks was examining plant samples from various worlds. He was a botanist, specializing in food crops, trying to find species that could grow in different environments. Ryan was quiet and focused, the kind of person who could spend hours studying a single leaf without getting bored. What most people on the station did not know was that Ryan had been a soldier before becoming a scientist. He had served in the Earth Defense Force for 8 years before deciding he wanted to grow things instead of destroying them, but old habits stayed with a person. And Ryan still moved like a soldier, still kept aware of his surroundings, still noted every exit and potential weapon in any room he entered. The alarm started as a low warning sound, then quickly escalated to a screaming emergency signal. Red lights flashed throughout the station. Containment breach in Xenobiology Section 4, the computer voice announced calmly, as if it was not delivering a death sentence. All personnel, evacuate immediately. Security Protocol Alpha is now in effect. Lisa looked up in confusion. What does that mean? Venkra's scales had turned almost white with fear. It means something from the quarantine zone has escaped. We need to leave now. The Vraxian security commander's voice came over the station speakers. All personnel move to evacuation pods immediately. This is not a drill. I repeat, this is not a drill. Lisa grabbed her datapad and started moving toward the exit, but then she stopped. Wait. What about the people in Section 4? There are 17 researchers in that area. Venkra grabbed her arm, pulling her toward the exit. They are already dead. When a containment breach happens in quarantine, there is no rescue. We seal the section and evacuate. It is the only way. You are just going to leave them? Lisa pulled away from Venkra's grip. There is no choice. A Kresh predator has escaped. Nothing survives a Kresh predator. Our only option is to seal the section and destroy it from outside before the creature reaches the main habitat areas. Ryan had joined them now, moving quickly but calmly. What exactly is a Kresh predator? The Vraxian security commander appeared in person, surrounded by guards carrying plasma rifles. His name was Tolvan, and his scales showed the scars of many battles. It is a creature from a death world even worse than yours, human. It has armor that deflects energy weapons, claws that can cut through metal, and it is intelligent enough to hunt strategically. One Kresh predator killed an entire military outpost of 40 soldiers before we managed to trap it. That is why it was in quarantine. Even one. Enstensi, and you are abandoning 17 people. Lisa said, her voice hard. They are already dead, Tolvan repeated. I am sorry. But this is the reality. Now move to the evacuation pods, before we have to force you. Lisa looked at Ryan. Something passed between them. An understanding that needed no words. No, Ryan said simply. Tolvan stared at him. What did you say? I said no. We are not leaving people to die, if there is any chance to save them. Ryan started walking toward the weapons locker on the wall. You cannot fight a Kresh predator with those primitive weapons, Tolvan said, moving to block him. Our plasma rifles can barely slow it down. Your projectile weapons will be useless. Ryan opened the locker and pulled out an assault rifle, checking it with practiced movements. Maybe, maybe not. But I am not going to run away without trying. Lisa grabbed a medical kit. I am going with him. If anyone is injured, they will need help. The Vraxian guards looked at their commander, unsure what to do. This was not a situation they had trained for. The humans were refusing a direct order to evacuate, and technically the station was under joint command. They could not force them to leave. Tolvan made a decision. Fine. Go to your deaths if you must. We will monitor from a safe distance. When you fail, we will seal the section. He turned to his guards. Evacuate all Vraxian personnel. Set up containment fields at every junction. If that creature gets past the humans and reaches the main station, we blow the entire section into space. Ryan and Lisa moved through the empty corridors towards Section 4. The station felt wrong in its emptiness. With only the emergency lights still functioning, every shadow seemed threatening, every sound magnified in the silence. You know this is crazy, Lisa said quietly. Completely crazy, Ryan agreed. But I did not become a better person just to go back to being a coward when things got hard. They reached the entrance to Section 4. The door was torn open, metal bent like paper. Beyond it, they could hear sounds. Crashes. Screams that cut off suddenly. The sounds of something large moving through the corridors. Ryan loaded his rifle and checked his spare magazines. He had 4 magazines total. 120 rounds. It would have to be enough. Lisa stayed behind him, her medical scanner active, trying to locate survivors. I am reading 3 life signs, she whispered. 2 humans, 1 Vraxian. They are in the cold storage unit, hiding. And the predator? Somewhere between us and them. They moved slowly, carefully. Ryan had switched his mindset. Back to the soldier he used to be. He watched corners, checked sight lines, controlled his breathing. Lisa followed his lead, trusting his experience. The Kresh predator appeared suddenly, turning a corner ahead of them. It was huge, easily 3 meters tall, covered in dark armor plates that seemed to absorb light. Its 6 legs moved with disturbing speed, and its head was mostly mouth, filled with rows of serrated teeth. The eyes were small, but intelligent, calculating. It saw them and charged. Ryan fired. The rifle bucked in his hands as he put rounds into the creature's center mass. The bullets hit the armor and ricocheted, doing no visible damage. The predator kept coming. Run, Ryan shouted, pulling Lisa back the way they had come. But he was not running in panic. He was running with purpose, leading the creature away from the cold storage unit, where the survivors were hiding. And as he ran, his mind was working, analyzing, planning. The Vraxians watching through security cameras could not understand what they were seeing. The human was not fighting the creature head-on, not trying to overpower it with strength or superior weapons. Instead, he was using the environment. He led the predator through a maintenance corridor, past a junction where cooling pipes ran along the ceiling. Ryan stopped running and turned to face the creature. He raised his rifle, but this time he did not aim at the predator. He aimed at the pipes above it and fired. The pipes burst, releasing supercooled liquid nitrogen that poured over the Kresh predator. The creature screamed, a sound like tearing metal, as its armor plates cracked under the sudden temperature change. Lisa understood immediately. She pulled out a flash grenade from the emergency kit and threw it. The bright explosion disoriented the predator, and Ryan fired again, this time at the cracked armor. The bullets penetrated, and the creature staggered. But it was not dead. It was angry. What followed was a desperate chase through the station. Ryan and Lisa used every trick they could think of. They lured the creature into narrow corridors, where its size worked against it. They used emergency doors as traps, closing them at the last second. They exploited every weakness, Lisa's scanner revealed, targeting joints and soft tissue when the armor was compromised. The Vraxians watched in disbelief. The humans were not just surviving, they were hunting. They had turned the predator into prey, using intelligence and creativity to overcome a creature that should have killed them instantly. Finally, in the station's recycling center, Ryan made his stand. He had 1 magazine left, 15 rounds. The predator was wounded but still dangerous, cornered among the industrial machinery. Lisa stood ready with an emergency plasma cutter. Normally used for repairs, but deadly enough in the right hands. Ryan fired his last rounds, not at the predator, but at a support beam above it. The beam collapsed, and tons of metal fell on the creature. The plasma cutter finished the job, And finally, the Kresh predator stopped moving. In the silence that followed, Ryan and Lisa stood breathing hard, covered in sweat and alien blood. Then they remembered why they were there and ran to the cold storage unit. All 3 survivors were alive, scared, but unharmed. On the bridge of the Eternal Dominion, Commander Zethrax watched the security footage for the 5th time. He could not believe what he had seen. 2 humans, lightly armed, had killed a creature that required military teams to contain. They had not overpowered it. They had outsmarted it. They had turned a death sentence into a victory. They hunted it, Krenva said quietly. Zethrax felt his scales prickle with a new understanding. The legends about humans were wrong. They were not simple monsters driven by instinct. They were something far more dangerous. They were intelligent predators who could think, adapt, and create solutions where none should exist. The reality of what humanity was had just revealed itself, and it was far deadlier than any legend could have captured. The conference room was designed to accommodate both species comfortably. One side had the higher temperatures and humidity that Vraxians preferred, while the other side was kept cooler for the humans. In the middle was a large table, where both groups could meet on equal ground. Captain Nicole Grant of the Earth Defense Force sat on the human side, flanked by Dr. Ben Carter, a specialist in alien psychology, and Lieutenant Alex Hayes, a tactical officer with years of combat experience. They faced Commander Zethrax and his senior officers across the table. The mood was tense but not hostile. Both sides wanted answers. "Thank you for agreeing to this meeting," Nicole began. "After the incident at Harmony Station, we believe it is time for a more honest conversation about our 2 species." Zethrax nodded slowly. "We agree. We need to understand each other better. The events at Harmony Station have forced us to reconsider everything we thought we knew about humans." "What did you think you knew?" Ben asked, leaning forward with genuine curiosity. It was Trenka, one of the Vraxian military advisors, who answered. "We studied Deathworld species for centuries. We know the patterns. High-gravity worlds produce strong, durable species. Toxic atmospheres create beings with advanced filtration systems. Predator-rich environments create aggressive, territorial creatures. We thought we understood what humans would be like, but we do not fit your patterns," Nicole guessed. "No," Zethrax admitted. "You do not. You are contradictions that should not exist. Let me explain." He activated a holographic display, showing data collected from human observations. "You are predators. This is clear from your biology, your evolution, your history. Yet you also display behaviors that make no sense for predator species." End quote. "Like what?" Alex asked. Krenva spoke up, her scales showing colors that Ben recognized as confusion. "You form emotional bonds with creatures from other species. We have observed humans keeping animals as companions, treating them as family members. Some humans even prefer the company of these animals to other humans. This is irrational for a predator. Also, we have observed humans keeping animals of these animals. You weep over the deaths of beings who share no genetic relationship with you," Trenka added. "You create art and stories about creatures and people who never existed. You show empathy for your enemies. These are not predator behaviors. These are not even logical behaviors. So," Ben smiled slightly. "You are saying we are too emotional. We are saying you are paradoxes," Zethrax corrected. "But there is more. Your capacity for violence shocks even us, and we have been warriors for thousands of years. We reviewed your historical records, the ones you made public. Your species has been at war with itself for your entire recorded history. Most species fight," Nicole pointed out. "Not like you," Zethrax said firmly. "Most species fight over resources, territory, survival. You fight over ideas. You fight over beliefs. You fight over concepts that have no physical form. And you document these wars. Study them. Memorialize them. You treat warfare as a subject worthy of art and philosophy. This disturbs us deeply. Alex leaned back in his chair. You think we glorify violence, do you not? Trenka challenged. Your entertainment is filled with conflict. Your children play games based on combat. You have millions of books, films, and stories about war and fighting. You preserve the memory of your battles with monuments and ceremonies. What else would we call this? Context, Ben said softly. You are seeing the actions without understanding the reasons behind them. Then help us understand, Zethrak said. Because right now, you terrify us. And fear makes people do dangerous things. Nicole took a deep breath. This was the moment that would define the relationship between their species. You are right that we are contradictory, but you are wrong about why. Let me ask you something. How many extinction-level events has your species survived? The Vraxians looked at each other, confused by the question. None, Krenva finally answered. Our evolution was relatively stable. We developed intelligence and built civilization without facing existential threats. Humans faced at least 6 extinction-level events, Ben said. Ice ages that covered most of our planet. Volcanic eruptions that blocked out the sun for years. Droughts that destroyed entire ecosystems. Plagues that killed significant portions of our population. We survived all of them, but barely. This made you violent, Trenka asked. This made us adaptable, Alex corrected. Violence is just one form of adaptation. Let me give you an example. Imagine you are a human living 10,000 years ago. Your environment is deadly. Predators hunt you. The weather can kill you. Food is scarce. What do you need to survive? Strength, Krenva offered. Strength helps, but it is not enough. You also need cooperation. You need other humans to help you hunt, to watch for danger while you sleep, to share knowledge about which plants are safe to eat. So humans evolved to form tight social bonds, to feel empathy for group members, to communicate complex ideas. We became social creatures because isolation meant death. Ben continued the explanation. But you also need to be able to fight when necessary. So, we evolved aggression, territorial instincts, the ability to see others as threats. We became capable of violence because sometimes violence was the only way to survive. You are both predator and prey, Zethrak said slowly, understanding dawning. You needed the instincts of both to survive. Exactly, Nicole confirmed. And it goes deeper than that. We needed to be creative to solve problems our strength could not handle. We needed to be logical, to plan for the future. We needed to be emotional to maintain social bonds. We needed to be curious to explore and find new resources. Every contradiction you see in us exists because our environment demanded it. Trenka was studying the data more carefully now. You're young, mature, slowly compared to most species. Human children are dependent on adults for many years. Yes, Ben agreed. Which means we invest heavily in each individual. We form deep parental bonds. We protect our children fiercely. We pass knowledge down through generations, teaching each child everything our species has learned. This is why we create art and stories. They are teaching tools, ways to pass information that is too complex for simple instruction. And this is why you bond with animals, Krenva said, pieces falling into place. You are programmed to form protective relationships with young, vulnerable creatures. Your instincts do not distinguish between human children and other species that trigger the same responses. That is part of it, Nicole said. But we also bond with animals because we learned that cooperation with other species could be beneficial. Humans domesticated dogs thousands of years ago. We learned to work with horses, to keep animals for food and materials. We learned that not everything different from us needed to be a threat. Alex pulled up some data on the display. Now let me address the violence question. Yes, humans have fought each other throughout our history. But do you know what else we have done throughout our history? Cooperated, built cities, created art, developed science, explored, helped each other. For every war in our history, there are 1,000 acts of cooperation. We do not glorify violence. We memorialize it because we want to remember the cost, to learn from our mistakes. Your species improves by studying failures, Zethrax observed. We improve by studying everything, Ben said. Success, failure, our own behavior, the behavior of others. We are endlessly curious because curiosity helped us survive. Every time we faced a new problem, we had to learn, adapt, and find solutions. This became hardwired into us. Krenva pulled up the security footage from Harmony Station. This is what frightens us most. Watch this moment. She highlighted the section where Ryan led the Kresh Predator into the maintenance corridor. He is not fighting on instinct. He is thinking, planning, using the environment as a weapon. He turns a creature designed to kill into prey. This level of tactical thinking combined with your physical capabilities is unlike anything we have encountered. You can predict every other species you have met, Alex said. But you cannot predict us. No. Zethrax admitted. We ran simulations. Thousands of scenarios of human behavior in various situations. Every simulation produced different results. Some humans fight, some flee, some negotiate, some sacrifice themselves. Some find creative solutions we never considered. You are chaos. We are individuals, Nicole corrected gently. Every human makes their own choices based on their own experiences and values. Yes, this makes us unpredictable at the individual level, but at the species level, we coordinate remarkably well. We share information freely. We build on each other's discoveries. We work together toward common goals, even while competing in other areas. Ben added, You see contradictions because you are trying to fit us into simple categories. But humans are not simple. We are both violent and peaceful, both logical and emotional, both selfish and altruistic, both competitive and cooperative. We are whatever the situation requires us to be, and we can switch between these modes rapidly. This is not a flaw in our nature. It is our greatest strength. The room fell silent as the Vraxians absorbed this information. Finally, Zethrax spoke. You are telling us that humans are adaptable at a fundamental level, not just physically, but mentally, emotionally, socially. Yes, Nicole confirmed. And this adaptability makes you unpredictable, creative, and extremely dangerous when threatened. Also yes, Zethrax looked at his fellow officers, seeing his own thoughts reflected in their expressions. They had thought humans were monsters from a death world, creatures driven by base instincts and violence. The reality was so much more complex and so much more frightening. Humans were not monsters. They were survivors who had evolved the ability to become whatever they needed to be. In a peaceful situation, they could be the most cooperative and creative species imaginable. In a dangerous situation, they could become the most deadly predators in the galaxy. The Vraxian Empire had conquered 47 star systems by understanding their enemies, by predicting their behavior and planning accordingly. How did you fight an enemy who could adapt faster than you could plan? How did you predict a species where every individual was different? How did you defend against creativity? The answer was simple and terrifying. You did not fight them. You made sure they never became your enemy in the first place. Because if humans ever decided the Vraxian Empire was a threat, the Empire would face an opponent unlike any they had encountered before. Not because humans were stronger or more numerous, but because they would find ways to win that the Vraxians could not anticipate or defend against. The meeting ended with more questions than answers, but both sides understood each other better. The Vraxians now knew that humans were not simple monsters. They were complex beings capable of both great kindness and terrible violence. And the situation would determine which side emerged. And that reality was far deadlier than any legend. The distress call came from the edge of Vraxian space at 0300 hours. Commander Zethrax was pulled from his rest cycle by the urgent message. What he heard made his blood run cold. They are everywhere. The panicked voice of Captain Selkor came through, barely audible over the sounds of weapons, fire, and screaming. We cannot stop them. They adapt too fast. Every weapon we use works once, maybe twice, then they learn. They are learning from us while they kill us. We need immediate evacuation. We need backup. We need anything. Please, Commander. They are killing everyone. Then, the transmission cut off, replaced by static. The Scourge had arrived. Zethrax had heard of the Scourge, though he had hoped the reports were exaggerated. They were a hive-minded species that consumed everything in their path, breaking down organic matter to fuel their endless reproduction. But what made them truly terrifying was their ability to adapt. The Scourge learned from every encounter, modified their biology in real time, and shared that knowledge across their entire species instantly. Fighting them was like fighting an enemy that evolved during the battle. Over the next 3 weeks, the Vraxian Empire threw everything they had at the Scourge. Fleet after fleet was sent to stop the invasion. Each time, the Vraxians tried new tactics, new weapons, new strategies. And each time, the Scourge adapted and overwhelmed them. Worlds were evacuated. Stations were abandoned. The Empire's military, undefeated for 3,000 years, was being pushed back by an enemy they could not understand or predict. Zethrax stood in the war room aboard the Eternal Dominion, staring at the tactical display that showed the shrinking borders of the Empire. 30 ships lost, 12 stations destroyed, 2 planets overrun. The numbers kept getting worse. We cannot win this fight, Admiral Vextar said quietly. He was the supreme commander of the Vraxian military, and Zethrax had never heard defeat in his voice before. Every engagement teaches them more about us. They are using our own tactics against us now. They ambush our supply lines. They feint and flank. They target our command ships first. They are learning faster than we can adapt. Then what do? Krenva asked. We cannot evacuate entire systems. Where would everyone go? The room fell into heavy silence. These were military leaders who had spent their lives preparing for war, and now they faced an enemy that made all their preparation meaningless. It was Trenka who spoke the words everyone was thinking but no one wanted to say. We need to ask the humans for help. The reaction was immediate. Several officers started talking at once, their scales showing colors of shame and anger. Asking for help was admitting defeat. Asking the Deathworlders they had feared for help was admitting they were weaker than the monsters from Earth. Silence. Admiral Vextar commanded. The room went quiet. Trenka is right. Pride will not save our people. We need help, and the humans are our only option. They think differently than we do. Maybe they can see a solution we cannot. 3 days later, Admiral Kyle Turner arrived with the human fleet. Zethrax had expected a massive armada, hundreds of ships to match the Vraxian forces. Instead, 5 human vessels dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the rendezvous point. Just 5 ships. That is their entire contribution? Zethrax could not hide his disappointment as he looked at the display. Kyle Turner's face appeared on the communications screen. He was a middle-aged human, with gray in his hair and eyes that had seen too much combat. Commander Zethrax, I am Admiral Turner. These 5 ships represent our fastest response force. More will follow if needed, but I think you will find we work a bit differently than you are used to. With respect, Admiral, we have 200 ships and we are losing. Kyle smiled, though it did not reach his eyes. Because we are not going to fight them the way you have been fighting them. May I come aboard? My tactical officer and I have some ideas to discuss. An hour later, Zethrax, Admiral Vextar, and the senior Vraxian command staff gathered in the war room. Kyle was accompanied by Megan Ross, a human woman who looked too young to be a senior tactical officer, but whose eyes held the same hard experience as Kyle's. "Show us everything," Kyle said without preamble. "Every battle, every engagement, every failed strategy. We need to see how the Scourge learns." For the next 6 hours, they reviewed footage and data. Kyle and Megan asked hundreds of questions, some that seemed relevant and others that seemed completely random. They wanted to know how fast the Scourge adapted, how they communicated, how they distributed resources, how they chose targets. They examined every detail with an intensity that impressed even the veteran Vraxian officers. Finally, Megan sat back and looked at Kyle. "It is a system problem, not a military problem." "Agreed," Kyle said. "They are not an army. They are a biological algorithm running on organic hardware." Zethrax did not understand. "What does that mean?" Megan pulled up a diagram. "You have been fighting the Scourge like they are a traditional enemy. You identify their forces, engage them in battle, try to destroy them with superior firepower, but they adapt to your tactics because that is what they are designed to do. They are optimized for learning and response. So how do we fight them?" Admiral Vextar asked. "We do not fight them directly," Kyle said. "We exploit the fact that they are a system, and every system has vulnerabilities." Chris Bennett, the human Marine commander, joined the meeting via hologram. He was a large man with scars on his face and a reputation for brutal efficiency. "We have been studying their behavior patterns. They have a weakness. They are too good at learning." "How is learning a weakness?" Krenva asked. "Because if you can control what they learn, you can control how they evolve," Megan explained. "We are going to teach them to make mistakes." What the humans proposed seemed insane. Instead of trying to beat the Scourge with superior firepower, they would manipulate the Scourge into adapting in ways that made them weaker. They would feed the hive mind false information. They would create scenarios where the optimal learned response was actually a trap. They would make the Scourge's greatest strength into their downfall. "It will not work," Trenka said flatly. "They will see through any deception. They will see through obvious deceptions," Kyle agreed. "But we are not going to be obvious. We are going to play the long game. It will take weeks, maybe months, but we will make them destroy themselves." The Vraxians were skeptical, but they had no better options. They agreed to try the human plan. What followed became known as the Cascade Protocol, though the Vraxians would call it something else: the human solution. The first phase was battlefield conditioning. The human ships engaged the Scourge in carefully planned battles, designed not to win, but to teach. They used weapons that seemed effective at first, but had exploitable weaknesses. They displayed tactics that appeared successful until the Scourge committed fully to countering them. Each engagement was designed to push the Scourge toward specific adaptations. "You are letting them win?" Zethrax watched in horror as a human ship retreated from a battle it clearly could have won. "We are teaching them bad habits," Megan explained. "Watch what they do next." The Scourge, having learned that massed frontal attacks worked against human ships, began using that tactic more frequently. The humans let them succeed several more times, reinforcing the behavior. Then, in a major engagement, the Scourge committed their entire invasion force to a massive frontal assault. And the humans were waiting with weapons and tactics specifically designed to counter that exact approach. The Scourge lost 30% of their forces in 3 hours, but the humans did not celebrate. This was just the beginning. The second phase was information poisoning. The humans sent out false signals, created fake weak points in their defenses, and staged elaborate retreats that were actually traps. Every piece of information the Scourge gathered was carefully curated to push them toward specific conclusions. The hive mind was learning exactly what the humans wanted them to learn. "They are adapting to counter our traps," Admiral Vextar observed. "As planned," Kyle said calmly. Now they are adapting to detect traps, which means they are becoming more cautious, more analytical. That is exactly what we want. The third phase was the most disturbing. Chris Bennett's Marines captured several scourge organisms alive. Using a combination of human biotechnology and psychological manipulation, they introduced a modified version back into the hive. This version carried information about a new food source, something the scourge found irresistible. The only problem was that this food source was other scourge organisms. You turned them into cannibals, Zethrax said, watching the reports in disbelief. We exploited their hunger response, Megan corrected. The scourge consume everything organic to fuel their reproduction. We just convinced them that their own biomass was the most efficient food source available. The hive mind did the rest. The scourge began to tear itself apart from within. The hive mind, optimized for efficient resource consumption, calculated that consuming its own forces was the fastest way to reproduce. It was caught in a logical loop of its own making, created by months of careful manipulation. Within 6 weeks of the humans' arrival, the scourge invasion had collapsed. Not because they were defeated in battle, but because they had been programmed to defeat themselves. The Vraxian Empire had lost thousands of soldiers and dozens of ships trying to fight the scourge conventionally. The humans had won with minimal casualties by fighting in a way the Vraxians could barely comprehend. In the aftermath, Zethrax met with Kyle aboard the Eternal Dominion. The human admiral looked tired, but satisfied. How did you know this would work? Zethrax asked. Because we understand systems, Kyle replied. Computers, biology, societies, economies, they all operate on similar principles. Find the core logic. Identify the feedback loops, then exploit them. It is not about being stronger or faster. It is about being smarter and more creative. You weaponized their own nature against them, Zethrax said quietly. You made them destroy themselves. We identified a problem and solved it, Kyle said. When humans choose violence, we are efficient about it. We do not waste lives or resources fighting fair. We fight to win, using whatever method works best. Trenka, who had been listening, spoke up. The legends said humans were monsters. Simple beasts, driven by aggression and instinct. But this, what you did to the scourge, this required planning, patience, understanding of complex systems, psychological manipulation. You are not monsters at all. No, Zethrax agreed, finally understanding. They are not monsters. Monsters are simple. Monsters are predictable. Monsters can be understood and defeated. Humans are none of these things. They are creative problem solvers who will use any method, any tool, any strategy to achieve their goals. When they are peaceful, they are the best allies you could ask for. But when they choose violence, they are absolutely terrifying because they will find ways to win that you never even considered possible. Kyle stood to leave. We should return to Earth. You have the situation under control now. But Admiral Zethrax, I hope this experience has taught both our species something valuable. We do not have to be enemies. We can be something much better. As the human fleet prepared to depart, the Vraxian command staff gathered to watch them go. The 5 small ships that had accomplished what 200 Vraxian vessels could not. The reality of humanity had been revealed, and it was indeed far deadlier than any legend. Not because humans were monsters, but because they were something far more dangerous. Intelligent, creative, adaptable survivors who could turn any situation to their advantage. The galaxy would never look at humans the same way again. 3 months after the Scourge War ended, Ambassador Kate Sullivan stood on the homeworld of the Vraxian Empire for the first time. The planet was beautiful, with violet skies and crystalline structures that reflected light in ways that made the entire city seem to glow. She was accompanied by Dr. Danny Price, a biologist who had studied both human and Vraxian evolution. and Laura Martinez, a historian who specialized in first contact scenarios. The Vraxian High Council had requested this meeting to formally discuss the future relationship between the two species. After everything that had happened, both sides knew that they could not simply continue as they had been. Too much had been revealed. Too much had changed. The council chamber was vast, with seats arranged in a circular pattern so that all members could see each other. The prime speaker, an ancient Vraxian named Vethron, sat at the head. His scales were pale with age, marked with countless scars from a lifetime of service. Around him sat the other council members, representing different aspects of Vraxian society. Military, science, trade, culture. Ambassador Sullivan, Vethron began, his voice translated into English by the advanced systems both species now shared. Thank you for traveling so far to meet with us. We have much to discuss. Kate inclined her head respectfully. Thank you for inviting us. Prime Speaker. We understand the significance of this meeting. Do you? Vethron asked, not unkindly. Do you truly understand what your species has done to ours? Not through violence or conquest, but simply by existing? Kate chose her words carefully. We have challenged your understanding of the universe. We have shown you that your models of behavior and prediction are not universal. We have frightened you. We have frightened you. Yes, Vethran agreed. But it is more than that. For 3,000 cycles, the Vraxian Empire has been the dominant power in this region of space. We achieved this through understanding. We studied every species we encountered, learned their patterns, predicted their actions. This knowledge made us strong. But you, humans, you cannot be predicted. You cannot be understood through our traditional methods. You have broken our models of reality. Danny leaned forward slightly. With respect, Prime Speaker, perhaps your models were incomplete. You studied many species, but most of them evolved in relatively stable environments. Humanity evolved in chaos. Our planet threw everything at us. Extreme temperatures, deadly predators, disease, natural disasters. We survived by becoming adaptable. Not just physically, but mentally and socially. He activated a holographic display showing comparative evolutionary data. Look at the differences. Most species you have encountered developed along clear evolutionary paths. They specialized, became very good at specific survival strategies. Humans never specialized. We remained generalists, capable of adapting to almost any situation. This made us less efficient in any single area but more flexible overall. Laura added historical context. And this adaptability extended to our culture and psychology. Human societies have taken countless different forms throughout our history. Different governments, different belief systems, different social structures. We have been warriors and farmers, explorers and settlers, builders and destroyers. Sometimes, all at the same time. We are comfortable with contradiction because our survival depended on it. A council member named Sevnak spoke up. But this adaptability makes you unstable. How can a society function when every individual can make completely different choices in the same situation? Through communication and cooperation, Kate replied. Yes, every human is unique. Yes, we often disagree with each other. But we have also developed sophisticated methods of coordination. We share information freely, we debate ideas openly, we build consensus while still respecting individual differences. Our diversity is not a weakness. It is a strength, because it means we approach problems from multiple angles simultaneously. The Scourge War proved this, Danny continued. Your forces tried to fight the Scourge using traditional military doctrine. One strategy at a time, adjusted based on results. The humans approached it differently. We had multiple teams working on different solutions simultaneously. We shared all our findings instantly. When one approach showed promise, Everyone could build on it. This is how we solve complex problems, through collective intelligence that preserves individual creativity. Vethran was silent for a long moment, his scales showing colors that Laura had learned indicated deep thought. You are asking us to accept that chaos can be organized, that unpredictability can be reliable. We are asking you to expand your definition of order, Kate said gently. The universe is more complex than any single model can capture. Humans represent a different kind of order, one based on flexibility rather than rigid structure. We can seem chaotic because we do not follow predetermined patterns. But there is logic to our behavior. It is just more complex logic than you are used to. Another council member, Telvas, who represented the military, spoke with obvious frustration. But how do we plan for such complexity? Our entire defensive strategy is based on predicting enemy behavior. If we cannot predict humans, how can we ever feel secure in any alliance with you? Alex Hayes, who had been invited to join the delegation specifically to address military concerns, responded. You are thinking about this wrong, Commander. You do not need to predict individual human behavior. You need to understand human motivations and values. Let me give you an example. Can I predict exactly what my fellow humans will do in any given situation? No. But can I predict that most humans will protect their families? That they will honor agreements they have made? That they will respond to genuine threats? Yes. Absolutely. Values are more reliable than behaviors, he continued. If you understand what humans care about, what we value, what we fear, then you can understand us even if you cannot predict our exact actions. We value freedom, family, cooperation, fairness, and survival. Build your relationship with humanity around these values, and you will find us very reliable allies. Danny pulled up more data. And there is something else you need to understand. You have been afraid of human violence, of our capacity for destruction. But look at our history more carefully. Yes, we have fought wars. Yes, we can be dangerous. But we have also built civilizations, created art, developed science, explored our world and beyond. For every hour of human history spent in warfare, there are hundreds of hours spent in peaceful cooperation. Violence is not our default state. It is a tool we use when necessary. But it is not who we are. Then who are you? Vethran asked. If not warriors, if not monsters, if not simple predators, then what is the true nature of humanity? Kate stood, knowing this was the moment that would define everything. We are survivors, Prime Speaker. That is the fundamental truth about humanity. We survive. We adapt. We learn. We grow. We overcome. When faced with a problem, we find a solution. When faced with a threat, we find a way to neutralize it. When faced with opportunity, we explore it. We are not defined by any single trait or behavior. We are defined by our ability to become whatever we need to be. The legends about humans were wrong because they tried to make us simple, Laura added. They said we were monsters from a death world, driven by instinct and hunger. But the reality is far more complex and, yes, far more dangerous. We are intelligent, creative, social beings who can adapt to almost any situation. We can be the best friends you ever had, or the worst enemies you could imagine. The choice is not ours alone. It depends on how we are treated, how we are approached, what opportunities and threats we face. Danny concluded the presentation. You asked what humans are. We are potential. We are possibility. We are the species that refuses to accept that anything is impossible. When every other option has failed, humans will find a new option. When the situation seems hopeless, humans will create hope. When faced with the unknown, humans will explore it rather than fear it. This is what makes us dangerous, not our weapons or our violence, but our refusal to accept defeat or limitation. The council chamber was silent. Kate could see the Vraxian leaders processing this information, their scales shifting through various colors as they communicated non-verbally with each other. Finally, Vethron spoke again. You have given us much to consider. But I must ask the most important question. What do you want from us? Now that you have demonstrated your capabilities, now that you have shown us what humans truly are, what is your intention toward the Vraxian Empire? Kate met his gaze steadily. We want the same thing we have always wanted, Prime Speaker. Partnership, friendship, cooperation. We want to share knowledge, trade goods, explore the galaxy together. We want to learn from you as you learn from us. We do not want to conquer you, or replace you, or control you. We want to exist alongside you as equals. And if we refuse, Sevnok challenged, if we decide that the risk of alliance with humans is too great, then we will be disappointed. But we will respect your choice, Kate replied honestly. We will withdraw to our own space, continue our own development, and hope that perhaps in the future you will reconsider. We are not going to force friendship on anyone. That would defeat the entire purpose. Telvas leaned forward. But what about the Scourge? What about other threats? You have proven you can solve problems we cannot. Will you help us again, if needed? If you ask us as friends, yes, Kate said. If you demand it as subjects, no. We are willing to be allies, to stand together against common threats, to share our knowledge and capabilities. But it must be a relationship of mutual respect and genuine partnership. The council deliberated for 3 full days. During that time, Kate, Danny, and Laura toured the Vraxian homeworld, met with citizens, shared meals with Vraxian families, and began to build the personal connections that would underpin any formal alliance. On the 4th day, the council reconvened. Vethron addressed the human delegation with all the council members present. We have reached a decision, he began. The legends spoke of monsters, called humans. They warned us of creatures from a death world who knew only violence and destruction. They told us to fear the Deathworlders, to avoid them, to prepare for the day they might threaten us. He paused, his scales shifting to a color Laura recognized as determination mixed with acceptance. The legends were wrong, Vethron continued. Not because humans are not dangerous. You are perhaps the most dangerous species we have ever encountered. But dangerous and evil are not the same thing. The reality of humanity is far deadlier than any legend, because you are not simple, not predictable, not limited. You are creative, adaptable, intelligent beings who can become whatever the situation requires. You are mirrors that reflect back what is needed. And that is precisely what the galaxy needs. We accept your offer of partnership, he announced formally. Not because we fully understand you, because we do not. Not because we are no longer afraid, because that would be a lie. We accept because we recognize that the universe is changing, and the old ways of thinking are insufficient. You represent a new kind of intelligence, a new kind of society, and we would rather have you as partners than as strangers. Kate felt relief wash over her. Thank you, Prime Speaker. You will not regret this decision. Perhaps not, Vethran said, with what might have been a smile. But I suspect you will keep us on our scales for many years to come. Humans are not an easy species to be friends with. You challenge everything, question everything, push boundaries constantly. But perhaps that is what we need. We have become comfortable in our dominance. You will keep us sharp, keep us adapting, keep us learning. And in return, we offer you stability, structure, and the collective knowledge of 47 civilizations. The formal treaty was signed later that day. Human and Vraxian representatives stood together as equals, agreeing to mutual defense, free trade, cultural exchange, and joint exploration. It was the beginning of something unprecedented in the galaxy. A true partnership between a Death World species and an empire that had never faced such a challenge. Jake Morrison, who had started this entire journey months ago, watched the ceremony from Earth, He had been right all along. Humans were not monsters. They were just misunderstood. But it had taken almost losing everything for both species to see past their fears and recognize the potential in cooperation. As the human delegation prepared to return to Earth, Kate stood with Commander Zethrax, looking up at the violet sky of the Vraxian homeworld. "Do you think this will work?" Zethrax asked quietly. "Our two species are so different." "That is exactly why it will work," Kate replied. "We are not trying to be the same. We are combining our different strengths. You bring order. We bring adaptability. You bring stability. We bring creativity. Together, we can face challenges that neither of us could handle alone." The Scourge War proved that. Zethrax acknowledged. "The Scourge War proved something even more important," Kate said. "It proved that humans are not just dangerous. We are also capable of incredible restraint. We could have used the confusion of the war to take advantage, to seize power, to establish dominance. We did not. We helped you, took our payment, and prepared to leave peacefully. That should tell you more about human nature than any display of violence ever could." Zethrax's scales shifted to a warm color. "You are right. Actions speak louder than capabilities. You showed us what you could do, then showed us that you choose not to abuse that power. That is the foundation of trust." Above them, human and Vraxian ships flew in formation for the first time, beginning joint patrols of the outer spiral. It was a new era for both species, one built not on fear or dominance but on mutual respect and shared purpose. The legends had spoken of monsters. The stories had warned of creatures to be feared. But the reality was far deadlier than any story because it was far more complex. Humans were not monsters. They were not saviors. They were not conquerors. They were survivors who had learned that survival often meant cooperation, that strength came from diversity, and that the greatest victories were won not through force, but through understanding. And that truth, more than any weapon or any strategy, would reshape the galaxy in ways no one could yet imagine. The age of humanity had begun, not with conquest or conflict, but with partnership and promise. The future was uncertain, as it always was with humans involved, but it was a future both species would face together. The stories would be rewritten, the legends would be corrected, and the truth about humans, complex and contradictory and absolutely fascinating, would spread throughout the stars.